Only 20 days are left for the next exam. I hope your preparation is going in full force, and I hope that you are studying all chapters from all subjects equally, because NEST demands a deep conceptual knowledge in every chapter. But there are a few chapters that are more important than the others, and in this video we'll be discussing which chapters you must do very thoroughly right before the exam. So let's get into it. Here we have the 10 analysis for physics. We can see from which chapter how many questions have been asked in all the previous years, and right off the bat you can see that even though there are not very often questions are asked from the mechanics section, but still mechanics is very important because it can be related with each and every other chapter in your syllabus. Same as for IIT, mechanics is the single most important unit in your entire syllabus. So make sure that your mechanics is very strong and you are able to solve even the toughest of questions from mechanics at least, because mechanics will be your life and death chapter. It will save you in a lot of questions. Make sure that mechanics is very thoroughly done before the exam and you are practicing more than enough problems from mechanics. You can also see that there are a lot of questions directly asked from mechanics, and I'm sure that in most of the other questions there are some concepts from mechanics that you need to apply to solve the question. Maybe balancing of forces, maybe conservation of energy, maybe the equation for simple harmonic motion you will need to use to solve other questions from other chapters also. And based on only the frequency of questions asked from the second unit, you can see that properties of matter, which covers both elasticity in solids and surface tension in liquids, is very important. At least one question has been asked consistently every year in every session also. And thermodynamics is of course of paramount importance. Questions can be phrased from thermodynamics in any way possible. You might be asked calculative questions, you might be asked conceptual questions, you might be asked graphical questions, you might have to relate thermodynamics with properties of matter or with some other chapters like kinetic theory of gases, or even fluid mechanics can be related to thermodynamics. So thermodynamics is also very important. These three chapters from 11th standard syllabus you need to do thoroughly. And again, based on the frequency of questions, electrostatics and magnetism is also very important. As you can see, a lot of questions have been asked from electrostatics and magnetism, and both of these chapters are sort of the representative chapter of their unit. We use the theory of electrostatics in capacitors and a little bit in current electricity also, and similarly we use the theory of magnetism in EMI and electromagnetic waves also. So just by doing these two chapters, you are also doing the entire unit. You are practicing questions from entire unit also while studying these chapters. So these two, electrostatics and magnetism, are also very important. And as usual, if you look at the last 4 chapters of a syllabus, ray optics, wave optics, modern physics, as well as semiconductors, there are a lot of questions asked from it, not as consistently as, let's say, electrostatics or thermodynamics, but still consistently a lot of questions have been asked. And you can see that in all the other chapters only 1 or 2 questions have been asked every year, but from modern physics you have been asked 3 and 4 questions consistently. Even in optics and wave optics you are asked 2 and 1 questions almost every year. We can see modern physics has a disproportionately high amount of weightage. So the last 4 chapters are also very must do chapters, and the good thing about these chapters is questions from these cannot be easily related to the other chapters. If you have a question from, let's say, nuclear decay, you will only have to use the law of nuclear decay. You won't have to use, for example, theory of simple harmonic motion to solve that question. Similarly, for optics and wave optics also, questions are pretty much isolated. If you practice a few questions, then you can solve any other question using just a little bit of logic. So not only are these 4 chapters important, but these are also very scoring chapters. These chapters are scoring. If you get a question from these chapters, very easily you will be able to solve them and you will be able to score marks in those chapters. Now this same information has been converted into a graphical form which is easier to read, and as you can see that most of the chapters, most of the units are pretty like well distributed. Weightage is very well distributed, but thermodynamics is one single chapter and it has 7.3% of weightage. A lot of questions have been asked from thermodynamics. Rest are all units. Mechanics is one unit. Optics consists of wave optics as well as ray optics. Electricity and magnetism are all single units which have 3 to 4 chapters, but thermodynamics has only one chapter and 7% weightage just for that one chapter is there. So thermodynamics is very important, as we have already seen. Modern physics has a lot of weightage. You can see electricity and magnetism combined has a 20% weightage. Properties of matter also has a lot of weightage, and of course, as I said, mechanics is very important. So based on weightage alone, we can see that the same topics are important and you need to do these topics thoroughly, because you can expect a lot of questions from these topics. And if you are weak in, let's say, either gravitation or oscillation and waves, if that chapter is not very strong for you, then you can cover up for those questions with these, which you can expect a lot of questions from. So last few days, of course, you should be focusing on the topics that are strong for you, because in the next exam you should not target solving each and every question from a particular section. If a particular question seems difficult to you, the best course of action is to just completely set the question aside. If time permits, you can go back to the question, but do not try to attempt questions that outright seem difficult to you, because all of the questions will be difficult. Even the examiners do not expect you to solve each and every question in the paper. Focus on the questions that are from your strong topics and that you can solve very quickly. Those will also be difficult. They will not be easy questions. You will take time to solve them. You will have to apply a lot of logic and a lot of calculations to solve them. So better to just leave questions that seem difficult to you and focus on those questions that you can expect. Strengthen these topics so that you know that a lot of questions will be asked from these topics and you can easily solve them just by putting in a little bit of effort. And of course, practice is very important. If you have been solving mock tests, then you are very well equipped to solve the final exam also. Again, these last 20 days, you don't need to learn new topics. If you try to do chapters that you have not done properly initially, then you will just waste your time, because a rudimentary understanding of a particular chapter of a particular topic is not at all enough to solve next level questions. You need a deep conceptual understanding of that chapter. So focus on the chapters that are strong to you. Practice regularly, do one mock test every day, and if you are looking for mock tests to solve, then we are bringing out the mock test series as well as everything series that not only has mock tests, but it has a discussion of all the previous year questions also, and some other materials that will be provided to you are included in the everything series. Otherwise, you can just take the mock test series and practice one mock test every day. That is more than enough practice you need, but make sure that you are doing it consistently. Even if you miss one day of practice, then you will lose the momentum. You will not feel like studying as hard on the next day. Only daily practice, that is 7 days a week, and all the 22 days, you should solve one mock test every day. Only then will you build the mindset, only then will you have the practice, will you be used to sitting for 3 hours and solving such high level question without getting distracted, without getting tired, without bringing yourself down mentally, without losing confidence, the only way to simulate it is to practice enough mock tests. So this has to be your strategy going forward. In the last 20 days, solve as many mock tests as you can, focus on these chapters, and most of all, give yourself enough rest so that your mind can work efficiently when you're practicing. I hope this video has been useful to you and has given you insights on what your tactics should be for studying in these last 20 days. And practice hard, solve questions very thoroughly. Keep in mind that NEST is a tricky exam. Leave difficult questions, and we'll see you at your dream institute. Thank you.